right, well, today in our pursuit of 50% margins, we're going to talk about two things. We're going to talk about pricing and insourcing. So let me write that up here. So pricing, I thought it would be easier to write from this side, but maybe I'm wrong. Pricing and insourcing. And so let's start with pricing. So let's say that you've got a product that costs $100 a month, SaaS product. And let's talk about, remember we talked last time about the fact that you have your revenue, let's say is this bar, and you have to operate the business, we want 50% margins, then by definition, half of it, you want to be profit margin and half of it is running the business. You've got certain, expenses that you really can't get away from in terms of powering the cost of goods and other sort of money that's leaving the company. And so it leaves you with something like a third that you're running the business on. Well, let's dig a little deeper there. In that third, actually not in that third, this is still getting into the cost of goods sold in a way, or really it's getting into pricing and what pricing you can sustain in pursuit of a high margin, but frankly, at all. Let's do some basic construction here. So we've got that $100 price, and this is killing me. I'm gonna flip around. Apparently it's easier for me to write from this side. Okay, so $100 a month, let's say. So actually, we'll just go ahead and call that $1,200 a year. So $1,200 a year, and let's say that you've got 100 clients, or rather that 100 clients, so that's $120K, right? $120,000 in revenue from a set of 100 clients. But if we were to say that you needed one customer support person for every 100 clients, I'm not saying that that your software necessarily does, but in this hypothetical example, what if we needed one CS person, so one customer success person, and we needed, let's say, half of an account exec, because maybe an account exec can only, this is hard to read, here, let me redo that. So one CS person, I'll do it that way, and half of an account exec per every 100 clients that are only earning you $1,200 a year in this example. So then you ask the question, well, what does a customer support person cost? It's pretty easy for a customer support person, and I'm just using, rounded US numbers here, but that could easily be $100K. Your mileage will vary, but when I say $100K, I mean $100K all in. So you may say this number's too low because that's not just their salary, that's their salary, their benefits, payroll taxes, all of that stuff, but it's also the marginal cost of all resources that they consume within the company. So if you have an annual offsite, if you have office space, if you have insurance, and by that I mean business insurance, all of those things, not just the healthcare aspect, but other expenses, all of that goes into a fully freighted sort of cost per employee. So many years ago, this is like, call it 20 plus years ago, I used to work on Wall Street. And in those days, some of those firms looked at their fully freighted cost per employee as being around $300,000. Now that being a while ago, it's substantially higher today. No, those were the big firms that have the big buildings on, literally on Wall Street or in Midtown Manhattan. So they have lots of expenses. Here we're running as a leaner startup, but again, fast forwarding to today's pricing, this is not unreasonable. And then let's just say, just to use round numbers, let's just say that our AE's cost was the same. Probably not, but let's just say that. So let's just assume. And then we've got $50K here. So you can see that this company is fundamentally upside down. If they need this degree of resources to deliver $120,000 worth of software to customers, I mean, they're at negative $30K and haven't even paid for anything yet. So fundamentally, this is not viable. One of the things that we have to think about when we think about pricing is, well, if it truly does take one customer service person, or one customer success person per 100 clients, and let's say half of an account exec, so these end up being variable costs that get spread across those clients. Well, then how do we square this circle? There's literally only one way if this is true. Either we can automate our processes further and have less customer success and a more automated sales funnel. So that would be one way to sell at this price point. Or the other way to sell at this price point is to raise prices. And so let's say we went with, $300 a month for a similar product. So now we've got $360K to work with, right? So $360K to work with. All of a sudden, these expenses fit. Now we've got $210,000 left after we take this stuff out. And depending on the rest of our cost structure, we might actually be able to squeeze in to this 50% margin equation. We might be able to make it. We might still be off by a little bit. Maybe we need to go a little bit higher. And so you can kind of see how this begins to play out. In concrete terms, in my past experience, when we were able to hit these margin numbers, where were we? No, we weren't at 3,600. We were actually at something more like 18K. And so then you get 18,000. So that's 1.8 million. So then you have 1.8 million, and then all of a sudden, having one customer success person per 100 clients, yeah, no problem. Having half an account exec, maybe you should have a whole account exec. And probably your account execs, now we can start to think about reality and let's actually pencil in a number that makes sense here. So half an account exec maybe is 100K. But nonetheless, the numbers make plenty of sense, and there's plenty of room left in that 1.8 million, or in the 900K that we can say that we're allowed to spend for the customer success, for the account what for the product. We haven't even talked about product development and all of those other expenses that exist. So what am I trying to get after here? It's that perfectly fine to have a $100 a month price point. Heck, it's perfectly fine to have a $9 a month price point, but your scale needs to reflect it. If you're selling at $9 a month, so call it $100 a year, then you need to have many thousands of customers per customer success, if you even call them that, because the things will be more automated, but per resource that goes into the management of that customer pool, you need to have a totally different level of scale. What I find, for B2B software pricing quite often, I'll say B2B, but honestly, any place where you need to be minding your customers and actually getting feedback from them, that could be B2C even. But what I find is that a lot of startups are underpricing. And they're thinking that, oh yeah, $99 a month, we don't want to break that, that 3 handle on pricing on a monthly basis, or just having this sort of tension and fear around moving up in price. But, do the math, do the scaling math. And I'm not saying this is just, arbitrary example. I'm not saying that this applies exactly, but some form of this applies. And so you want to make that work. All right, so that's one thing I wanted to cover today, just around pricing and making sure that you've got that in the right place. One more note before I leave pricing, and I've been guilty of violating this principle that I'm about to espouse on multiple occasions, but what I'll say is that you should start low, but not be afraid, but be bold in increasing prices once you've got some amount of product market fit, which honestly, product market fit is such a fancy word. What does that even mean? Let's just say it more simply. Once you have demand, once people are buying stuff, that's what we actually care about, right? So once customers are actually buying, then you start to think about it. You start to think, well, what is revenue optimizing or profit optimizing? Would raising prices slow my sales down and therefore cause it to not be optimizing? Or is it just as hard to win a customer either way? And so maybe I ought to continue raising prices. And so you can feel free to start. Maybe you do start, like in this example where maybe you end up at several $100s a month. Maybe you start out at $20 a month. Maybe you start out at $40 a month. Some much smaller number that's discounted, and you could even express that in your early pricing that, hey, this is like a massive discount to the full price. And then you start to step it up if you have demand. If people actually want what you're selling, then you got to test where that demand curve lies, and you can start to raise prices. All right, so that's the pricing side of the equation.